Let's call this committee of the whole meeting for February 4, 2025 to order. Madam Clerk, you call the roll.
Alderman Barrero.
Here.
Alderwoman Garza.
Here.
Alderman Masiacos.
Alderman Masiacos is here. Go ahead.
Right. Alderman Donnell. Alderman Franco.
Here.
Alderman Seville.
Here.
Alderman Tolliver.
Here.
Alderwoman Smith. Here. Alderman Bogg.
Here.
Alderwoman Bade.
Here.
Alderman Lash. Alderman Warman.
Here.
Mayor Urban's present.
All right. Now approval of the minutes for Tuesday, January 21st,
So moved.
2025 committee of the whole meeting. Motion made by Alderman Garza, seconded by Alderman Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries by voice vote. Mr. Muhammad.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. To be brief tonight, we do have a neighborhood groups brief presentation for you as we wrapped up January, exciting month here for us in the city of Aurora, where we concluded with 8 ribbon cuttings in January, an announcement of the new Apex, the Aurora Premier Experiences District, and the Aurora Regional Alliance announcement as well. We concluded with a wonderful Lunar New Year celebration with our Asian community and kicked off this weekend Black History Month with a wonderful breakfast attended by nearly 250 women. Just excited as we come into this cultural month as well. Just a few moments ago, we were with the Aurora Police Department as they made history honoring employees of the month, employees of the year, and promotions from sergeant to lieutenant. And then from those who weren't sergeant now to sergeant. And of those promotions, we have our second only Black female promoted to sergeant, Sergeant Sky Calise, and our first ever Latina lieutenant, Lorena Hernandez. Let's give them a round of applause as they make history over there. Absolutely exciting presentation. As we begin to move into February of the month, as you know, in your wards, nothing ever stops. It's a year-round activity. And last year, we really put a concentrated effort in our neighborhood groups and connecting our community engagement team with each of you in your wards. As we move the rest of this year forward, we're going to keep that concentrated focus. Although the census is temporarily postponed, we expect that not to last too long as we get back out into the neighborhoods. But you have the normal business of your wards to take on. So I'm going to introduce Ileana Rivera-Nunez, our community engagement manager, who will talk briefly about our neighborhood groups, what we are planning for 2025, and how you can help to build those groups in your wards there. Ileana?
Hello, everyone. Good evening. We do have a nice presentation for you guys, and we're going to have some handouts as well for everyone to follow along towards the end. But we just want to provide you guys with an update. As you guys know, you guys see us a lot in the community. Brian, Karina, myself, and we are obviously there to support each of you in your meetings, your neighborhood group meetings, as well as your events. Some of you have a lot of events going on, so we try to support everyone equally. So we are everywhere. So here for some reference, there is the ward map. I know you guys are very familiar with it, but just at a glance, so you guys can, our attendees can also follow along and see what our ward map looks like. So in the next couple pages, you're gonna see the wards, right? And highlighted groups per ward. So that way everyone can get a chance to see. And this is also accessible through the City of Aurora website. And our team is also always happy to help provide additional information and support for any constituents, right, wanting to start a group, or we're working on reinitiating some of those groups that were already standing years past. But these are our active groups. So Ward 1, you could see we have our 3 groups here. Ward 2, I'm not going to go through all of them because I don't want to bore everyone. And but those are the highlighted groups for each ward. Some have a lot more than others. We do include our AHA, Aurora Housing Authority apartments, and those are part of our groups as well. This past year they have been, and those have been very successful with our attendance there, because we want everyone to be receiving that same kind of support throughout the city of Aurora and everyone's voice to be heard. So it's been very empowering to be at those meetings as well and hear from everyone. So these are the wards of the neighborhood groups. And then we also have some events that we want to highlight for the wards that don't necessarily have groups, but have events that have been going on for years. So like Ward 9, Alderman Ed Bug, and Ward 10, Alderwoman Shweta Bade. We have your events listed as well, as we're also going to highlight all the events that our other wards have going on as well, because all of you have done a great job at adding events throughout the years, as well as those of you that are newer, kind of brainstorming to bringing on new events. And our team has always been here to support those initiatives, as well as the Alderman's office. But you could see some of these events listed here. And then we have our neighborhood events, right? Those are most wards put these together. So like National Night Out, all wards participate in this. Throughout the city of Aurora, we have the shred events, back to school events, the Easter egg hunt events from Ward 2 and 7, cleanup events, all wards as well. Dia de los Niños event, which is Alderwoman Juani Garza, trunk or treat, Ward 3, Las Posadas, Ward 2 and 3. And then turkey giveaways from Ward 7. I know that was like a newer event and very successful as well. And the Pioneer Breakfast from Alderwoman Juani Garza as well, that has been going on for years and a true staple in our city. But I highlight this because I think it's really important for all of us to see the efforts that each of our older people are putting in right within each ward. And also for those who maybe are thinking of like different events to do, we can bounce back ideas from each ward and work with our department or division to make these happen as well. Great events, extremely well attended, and it engages our community. So I think that's extremely important to continue. And then our goal for 2025 is to increase our neighborhood groups by 25%. We have a little over 20 groups already initiated and active, right? But with that, we are going to be launching our Belong board. Well, it is a board just to meet with the mayor quarterly, for the mayor to have face-to-face contact with the neighborhood group leaders. That's also something that we've addressed and heard from our leaders. They want more face-to-face, because they are that voice for each of those groups, right? So it is important for them to have a seat at the table where they can come together, hear each other's concerns or ideas, kind of work together, empower them to continue to work together within all the different wards and groups to see what everyone's doing. So it's the Board of Executive Leaders of Neighborhood Groups, which is the acronym BELONG. So we are excited to launch that on February 20th. So that's right around the corner. And here, I'm going to have Karina and Brian actually pass out a copy of our neighborhood group starter kit for everybody. This is nothing new. It's something that existed already a little over 10 years when neighborhood groups started. But we did take it upon ourselves, upon me starting in this position, to revamp it and really go through it in detail and clean it up, if you will, but also modernize it with just what we hear, right, from our constituents in these groups, which is they want more clarity when it comes to either if they have a group already, like, okay, how can I make it stronger? How can I grow my group? We've heard that from you as alder people as well. How can you guys help us grow our groups or initiate new groups? So with that being said, this is what was created. It came out really nice. This is, we're gonna obviously launch it. The goal is to launch it on the website for constituents to obviously have accessibility to it, as well as we're gonna you'll see the plans on there. I believe we'll go through the pages, but it's the last page, or actually page number 7, one of the last pages. That's a reference sheet. So for people who do want to start a group or already have one, they can actually just refresh, maybe also provide a little bit more structure to the groups that they have already. We do have a couple groups that are very well organized, but we want this to be the kit that everyone implements and follows for just that organization, that it's easier to follow. Like when new constituents are joining in these groups, they already know, like, wow, this is an organized group. I'm a part of something, and not just joining like a meeting, like, oh, I'm just hearing a bunch of people like just talk about, you know, updates or maybe complaints. Make it more efficient, as well as for everyone to continue to be heard and addressed. And so this is the starter kit that we have. So if anyone has any questions, we do have the reference guide on your screens for you guys to kind of at a glance. You could see it as well on the hard copy, but it's very easy to follow. If you guys have any questions, you can ask away, or we can meet at a later time.
I have a comment.
Yeah,
Mayor.
go ahead.
Alderman Burrow.
If you don't mind, I just wanted to comment, back in 2017, this program was started because of the need in response to crime. And I remember attending a church, there was a meeting there, and it was standing room only. And so this was something that came out of that from the people that were in the meeting. And this has continued to, you know, to flourish and move the city forward. You know, it was also started to be the partnership with the police department. So the police department could do policing, and then the neighborhood group support group would help in doing all these things that you're doing. And I just want to say kudos for the new energy and the fresh ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Smith.
Yeah, to start with, thank you guys for the great work you've done in this past year. The, you know, shred events, cleanup events, these types of things, the National Night Out, you guys were such a tremendous help in every way. Sometimes it's difficult to get volunteers for some of these things, and to know that there was an extra couple pair of hands in coming from you guys, it's really been a big plus. I do have a question. I am trying to differentiate between HOAs and neighborhood groups, because where I am part of 7 or 8 HOAs. That I attend their meetings, I do things with them, I go places to be where they're going to be. Do you consider that as part of a group? Because that wouldn't be listed, it's not listed under my ward, so I'm trying to, you know, does that make sense when I'm asking it? Because an
No,
HOA
yeah.
is a neighbor group, a large
Correct.
neighbor group. Is that something that we should be adding to this list, or?
And I think that is a great question, because we've even asked ourselves that. So it is tricky working with AHA organizations, right? Because there is a lot of detailed, fine line information when it comes to working with just government, City of Aurora government. That is something that we could definitely revisit with you and support, because I don't see why not, if if they are open to working with us,
Sure.
HOAs, associations, then of course we can add that to our list, especially for this upcoming year. Why not?
Okay. If there's
would
something
be
that they're
great.
doing that they would need assistance
Yeah, exactly, and we
with,
could
yeah.
support
All right.
that
All
too.
right, thank you.
So I think that's a great question.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for the presentation. It was great. Thank you for all the good work you guys do in our community with our community groups and HOAs and just across the city of Aurora. Appreciate it. Mr. Muhammad, thank you. That concludes our mayor's reports. Yeah, I know a lot of folks are here for the presentations, like some of our team, so I'll give folks that are here for presentations an opportunity to file out. Feel free to stay and participate in the whole meeting if you'd like, but I'll give you a second. All right, let's go on to the next portion of the agenda, public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any members of the public wishing to offer public comment?
We do, Mr. Mayor.
All right, will you read the rules of public comment, please?
Pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, all persons shall be permitted an opportunity to address public officials under the rules established and recorded by the council. Under our rules, any person may address the committee of the whole for up to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for all public comment. No person other than the timekeeper or the chair for the purpose of maintaining order may interrupt a person recognized for public comment during his or her comments. Members of the committee of the whole shall not engage with nor respond to a speaker during the time set aside for public comment. Staff is directed to follow up with members of the public with respect to any concerns raised during public comment within the scope of the city's authority following the adjournment of this meeting.
Will you read the name of the first speaker wishing to offer public comment?
Adam Pauley.
Adam Pauley. Adam Pauley does not appear to be present. Go on to the next speaker.
Matthew Orr.
Matthew Orr. Matthew Orr does not appear to be present. Go on to the next speaker.
Sandy Schmidt.
Sandy Schmidt. Ms. Schmidt, you have 3 minutes to speak beginning now.
Why is Mayor Irvin allowing Nina Armay, alias Nilda Melendez, and Alderman Franco's wife, Wendy, to target me? The answer is because I dare to speak up on the real issues that concern the people of Aurora, and he doesn't like it. He believes that because he is in power and I'm just a woman, he can intimidate me. Richard Irvin is using his power to direct his family and friends to demean me by spinning false narratives here and on social media because he wants to silence me and keep me in check. Mayor Irvin, you have turned our council chambers into a hostile atmosphere and a place of toxicity by allowing your friends to spread deceit and false allegations. You have broken your own rules on civility and set a precedent that allows anyone to come in here and make slanderous statements. For example, what if I repeated what Ms. Armay said on January 8th, 2025, and told you that I thought you, Mayor Irvin, are a cancer on Aurora and should step down? You would throw me out of chambers. It appears there are 2 Auroras. One is for friends of Richard Irvin, who can break the rules, bypass permits, and lie at council, all because they know him and have money. The second Aurora is for people like me who are harassed and targeted because we want honesty, accountability, and transparency. Okay, real talk about Nina Armay, alias Nilda Melendez. She flat out 100% lied about me here in council and on social media. Ms. Armay became so emotional and outlandish that she even threatened to call the FBI on me. She then took to Facebook and orchestrated a campaign over a period of weeks to bully and harass me. She took my profile picture and posted it on her page, tagged me, encouraging her friends to make derogatory comments about me like it was a game. So let's be logical. Let's take all the emotions out of this. If any of this were true, she would have filed a police report on me, but she has not. Ms. Armay, where is your proof? You have none. I love the city of Aurora. I've lived here for almost 20 years. I love the diversity. I love the downtown community. I love my neighbors. I have amazing neighbors. There's so many things to love about Aurora. But Mayor Irvin, these last few weeks have had nothing to do with city business in the council chambers, and instead it's all been about you. I can assure you that I will continue to speak up, that your intimidation tactics are not going to work. So enough.
Do you have any additional speakers, Madam Clerk?
We do not, Mr.
Let's go on to the
Mr.
next
Mayor,
portion of
Mr.
the,
Mayor.
Alderman Franco.
I know we're not supposed to comment, but the fact that my wife's name was brought up, I will tell everybody in this chambers. No, I will tell
Hold on.
everybody in this chambers.
No,
that my wife is independent and she did not put up.
hold
No,
on.
you can censor me if you want, but when you bring a family into this crosses the line. This is why she said what she said. because
Counsel.
you do this.
All right,
on a
then I
second.
will take 3 more
Hold
minutes
on, no,
to
you won't.
address.
Have a seat, ma'am, have a
Wendy
seat, have a
Franco.
seat. Alderman Bug,
No.
silence. Alderman Franco, we're going to move on to the next portion of the agenda. All right, let's go on to the next portion of the agenda. Can we have Vice Chair Sweta Bade give the Building, Zoning, Economic Development Committee report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Building, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee met on January 29, 2025, and reviewed the following items. 25-0020, a resolution authorizing approval of the Spring 2025 Historic Preservation Grants and allowing the mayor to enter into historic preservation grant agreements and addendums.
Consent.
No objections, I'm going to consent.
25-0021, 0035, an ordinance approving a revision to the River Street Plaza Plan description for property located at 100 South River Street, being at the southeast corner of River Street and Benton Street.
Consent.
Consent.
No objections, item will go on consent.
Next item, 25-0012, a resolution approving a final plan revision on Lot 3 and 4 of Fox Valley Villages subdivision, Unit 27A, located at 4173 Ogden Avenue, for additions to the vehicle dealership.
Consent.
No action needed on this item.
Yeah, no action needed. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. All right, let's go on to the next portion of the agenda. Chairman Franco, can you give the Finance Committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Finance Committee met on January 30th, 2025, and reviewed the following items. 25-0028, a resolution to approve an amendment to an agreement with Wesley United Methodist Church in the amount of $37,000. We've had more cold nights than originally anticipated, and this extra money will ensure going forward that we can
Consent.
continue to
Consent.
provide for those in need.
No objection, item will go on consent.
Next one is 25-0059, a resolution authorizing Director of Purchasing to enter into agreement with Matrix Consulting Group in the amount not to exceed $141,080 for a staffing and strategic planning study for the Aurora Police Department. This is the first time in recent memory that a strategic, detailed assessment of our police department and their needs to accomplish their goals has been done. The goal is to ensure that going forward, we are properly utilizing our assets and whether there is a better path forward in their
Consent.
community service.
No objections, item will go on consent.
Next is 25-0082, a resolution authorizing the Chief Financial Officer of the City of Aurora, the city to execute an agreement for ambulance billing services with EMS Management and Consultants. EMS purchased our
Consent.
previous billing
Consent.
service, and a new one-year contract was negotiated, which would save the city approximately $50,000 annually. Going forward, staff will evaluate other vendors to ensure we get the best deal possible when that contract expires.
No objections, item will go on consent.
Next is 25-0083, an ordinance reserving 2025 volume cap in connection with private activity bonds and related matters.
Consent.
Consent.
No objection, this item will go on consent.
All right, Mr. Mayor, the next three, we're going to have Marty Lyons come up and talk about one of those three, and it's just better to combine it when we talk about it, but Alderman Warman's going to have to recuse himself on 25-0093. So as we talked about, it'd be better if he just leaves so Marty can present the whole thing, and all three combined, as philosophically, and then what we'll do is then we'll bring back Alderman Warman, but the last one is the one he recused
Well,
himself.
I've had a conversation with my staff earlier today, and I think they want to keep a high level just to explain so Alderman Warman can be aware of how the whole breakdown will work. When we specifically talk about that item 25-0093, he'll recuse himself at that point. So these first parts of the conversation, I believe, from talking to my staff, is going to be at a high level where he can be involved.
Right, and that's okay, but he was at the Finance Committee, so he heard all those other ones. So I don't know if that makes a difference going forward. It doesn't matter.
Do you have any more-
Whatever's easier for you guys, I'm good with that.
I kind of agree with the mayor that
Okay.
this is,
We'll just,
I'm going to just
okay.
introduce Marty and the process.
Sure,
David
okay.
Debo, Director of Economic Development, everybody. And I'll be very general when it comes to the one that you're going to recuse yourself on. So we're here today to.
well, let me read.
I'm sorry.
You want me to read them all then? Is that
Go
what-
ahead.
Okay, I'll read them all.
We'll read all except for 25.
Okay, I'll write two of them. 25-0090, a resolution authorizing a redevelopment agreement between the City of Aurora and JH Real Estate Partners for the redevelopment of the property located at 2 South Broadway, commonly known as the Aurora National Bank Building. And 25-0092, a resolution authorizing a redevelopment agreement between the City of Aurora and JH Real Estate Partners for the redevelopment of the property located at 62 South Broadway, commonly known as the Franz Building, and the vacant lot located at 66 South Broadway.
Mr. Debo?
Thank you very much, Alderman. So we're here to discuss three residential projects that we're bringing forth for your consideration. One of them has been owned by the city, the Franz Building on Broadway between Downer and Benton, which has been subject to an RFQ. The building was once owned by the godfather of powerlifting, Ernie Franz. A second one is owned by a developer who is seeking to convert most of the floors from commercial to residential, the Aurora Bank Building on Galena and Broadway. The third is a building that is proposed to be repurposed from its existing use to residential use. It is under contract for purchase. Taken together, these three projects equate to an additional 88 residential units for the downtown. This goes a long way to completing the goal of the administration, which is to take vacant historic buildings or underutilized buildings and convert them to active residential and commercial use. For context, these buildings, the buildings that were done already over the last 7 or 8 years, these historic buildings, 80 South River, the old 129 Administration Building, the Hobbs, the Terminal, the Keystone, the Galena Hotel, and 110 Cross together equate to about 143 units. Adding these 88 units would bring the total for the historic renovations to about 231 units. Adding the residents on the East Bank, sometimes known as the DAC project, another 247 units, brings the total to about 500 units that we will have developed here. And this does not include a lot of the one-off properties around. So just to give you a context about tonight. The residential market is very healthy. There is virtually no vacancy in the downtown. And this includes both affordable units and market rate units. There are waiting lists for the affordable deals at Todd and Lincoln, 1449 senior estates. Yesterday, the mayor and I and Alex Alexandru, Maria, John Curley, Chris Ragona were downtown speaking with IDA and HUD, requesting more affordable funding for the city of Aurora. So what we're doing is we're trying to continue to balance the need for all housing, which includes affordable units and market rate units. When Marty Lyons, who's here, the ex-CFO, started on this process together about 7 or 8 years ago, we made certain predictions and commitments to you at the City Council related to the gap or the negative spread between the value of a project once completed and its cost. We indicated that if these projects were built and done well, that this gap would decrease. Tonight, you will see the result of many of these efforts. While the gap still remains a smaller gap, a much smaller gap, but is still there, fueled by persistent COVID-era inflation, that these costs have not come down. The amount of that gap has significantly shrunk to the point where the incentives that are being discussed tonight are a fraction of what was needed originally to jumpstart this residential juggernaut. There are no forgivable loans being discussed tonight, and the incentives that are being discussed will either involve no upfront funding or a return of 100% of the money that is advanced. Marty Lyons, who is our part-time consultant who thinks he's retired, but we don't quite let him get there, will lead this presentation. We've worked very closely together over the years, and it's important to note that when we were working together, Marty, as the CFO, advocated vociferously for the taxpayer to make sure that any deal that was brought forward was fair for the taxpayer. I was in the same camp, although my role at the time was to advocate for the private sector, and the two of us together balanced it together. So in that regard, he really is the perfect person to bring forth the details on this next deal, the next 3 deals. Just in closing, I do want to thank, of course, Marty and Trevor and Alex Manella and John Curley and Ed Seaman, who've spent many, many hundreds of hours going through these projects. Tracy, and of course, Alex Alexandru and the mayor for all your support. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marty to go into some details. And I think this would be the time, maybe, for the recusal.
Thank you, David, and
So at this time, we're going to get into, right now, we're just talking about the two,
I
which
will
are
talk about
Harish, Jay, and
both.
Harish.
but I will talk about both, and so I do advise that the
All right.
recusal happen now because he's already seen the presentation.
All right, at this time, let the record reflect that Alderman Warman is going to recuse himself based on 25-0093 and a potential conflict. Once Alderman Warman recused himself, which he's leaving the chambers as we speak. Why don't you just go ahead and read that third item that we left off, just so we're aware of what we're talking about.
Okay, 25-0093, a resolution authorizing a redevelopment agreement between the City of Aurora and Lost on River LLC for the redevelopment of the property located at 251 River Street, South River Street.
Thank you, Chairman Franco, and members of the council. It's a pleasure to be back in front of you. I enjoy seeing all the familiar faces. Thank you. We do have a fairly straightforward presentation in my mind, and sometimes Dave gets up and talks about concept, and then I get up and talk about numbers, and I'll try not to have that confusion or have anyone call me professor in the middle of the presentation. So we've kept it as simple as possible, and so we'll do a quick slideshow of what's happened numerically for those last 5 years from our first deals to where we're at now. So I'm not going to go through this. Come on. So these are the 3 deals: 6266 Broadway, the Franz, 2 South Broadway, Aurora National, and 251 South River. Then, by way of, why are we doing this? This is one of JH's deals, and they're the vendor at both the Franz, the developer at both the Franz and the bank building, and it's just a beautiful building. We're getting in the 3rd restaurant, and it'll be complete, but it's just awesome to see that done. So when we look at this picture, what this is indicative of, rents are going up. Actual rents are up. The projected rents for new developments are going up, and by a large factor, which is very important. David pointed out apartments are fully leased, and when you put both of those in the discussion, the first question I get is, so why do you need an incentive? If they're fully leased and if the rents are going up, why do you need an incentive? And we're going to hit that head on, and that is construction costs. They've gone up a lot in the same way, not as much, and that's why Dave referenced that the gap is narrowing, and why we're both going to show it in a few statistics tonight, but we're going to show it in the development points in the deal that show clearly we're offering less. Going on a little bit, again, our goal 5 years ago was to have a first wave where we were going to have to do grants and loans. And our goal was to get past that after a first wave, and we had COVID come in and really kind of slow us down a little bit, but we are moving forward on that same path. So with that said, I just want to get right into some simple charts. Per square foot rent. It's a simple concept that developers use all the time. So this chart just shows, and the graphic, that from, I'm going to use 1920 because that's when we had 80 South River, Lofts on Broadway, i.e. Terminal, Keystone, Hobbs, 100 North Broadway started in 1920, but we kept working that deal for almost 2 years. We even had updates as close as 2024 to that deal, and we are now under construction, so it's kind of in the middle.
Marty, may I stop you for a second?
Yes.
1920 or 2020? Because now we're talking
Did I say
124 years.
My
I'm
apologies.
thinking, okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure.
2019,
Okay.
I said 1920, meaning cutting off the
Year 19 and year 20.
2019.
Okay, all right, good, because I was
2020.
going to say Alderman Seville might be the only one that remembers that, so I didn't know we were going to go there.
Okay, all right.
I well remember that year.
All right, so you're going to try and make me lose my focus.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. So the thing that you'll see here is what's astonishing is how much the rents have gone up. Over the time from 2019 to 2020 up to 2025, it's a 34% increase in 5 years on the rents. And that's a combination of, you'll see it right there in that column, 2025, we've got 4 actuals that people are living there, and then you have the DAC building, 100 North Broadway, where their original proposal was 209, and now they're at 266, and they're under construction, so that's where they think they'll be. So that's really important to show what's going on. Our rents per square foot are going up. It's a great thing to see, because for the developments that don't involve us, the same thing is happening. So there's some developments that don't involve us, and that's great to know. So the costs, this is a little different, Chairman Franco, because we actually moved 100 North Broadway a little bit because we said, well, it really should be over in the other column for my percentage increases. We showed a lower percentage increase. This is now a 24% increase between 2019 and 2020 and where we're at now, 2025. And that's important. This is our cost per square foot. So and it's the cost for the residential. I want to make sure we're clear on that this is the residential, but it includes the hallways and all of those things. Point being that it's going up by 24%. So we've got a net gain of 10%, if you will, from rents going up and costs going up. So we're getting better. It's just not, we'd love it to be a little bit higher than that. So that's the gap is narrowing when we have that ability to say that. And what's really going to be important in a later slide is we show that the folks who took the chance originally, all their original costs are fixed. They're in, they're built, and now their rents are going up at this higher rate than we anticipated. And so they're doing better than anticipated. Now, and I'll get to exactly what that means. So, David talked about the environment and how things are getting better. Another way to look at this is called the 1% rule. If your rent is 1% of your cost on a per square foot basis, you're going to make money. It's a deal you can do. And go down, and I can't make it any bigger, but if you look down below, 80 South River, their cost without city incentives, their ratio was 0.54%. Only half of the 1%. That translates into my next slide, but this is a way to look at it. The average of that row is 0.45%. They're not anywhere near 1%. When you add in the incentives, it goes up closer to a little bit over 0.5%. And when you look at where they're at now, that's the last row shaded in green, they're at about 0.74%. So they've covered half the gap towards making money with their rents going up because their costs were fixed. Their construction costs are behind them. Now they're just trying to make more money and get to the point where they're turning a profit. So they're there. We're seeing the same thing on the unshaded ones, where what they're projecting is now, these are all the ones to the right side, those are all 2025 numbers. And you'll see they're all about equal to the older vendors' 2025 numbers in the lower green part. The only one that's projecting that they'll get over 1.1 is the largest development at 240 units, the 249 units, the DAC deal. And that's to be expected. They have economies of scale. They can and they have amenities that they're charging for. So it's possible for them to potentially make a little bit more. Our usual way to look at this is where we show you what we put in. And this summary is to show you that here's the deal points, and we can provide this to you later, but it's also in the other documents. But these are how much it costs, how much are the tax credits, all of those details. But I'll call your attention in the interest of time to look at the bottom. So they're getting, for instance, on the deals on the left side, 27% of the deals financed by tax credits, 36% on Franz. So they're taking advantage of the tax system. What we really like on this one is two down. The amount of equity being put in by the vendors, the developers in this case, is very high. We really love to see that over 25%. That's fantastic, especially when you see the line below it, when we're putting in 0 for Franz, 0 for the bank, and it's 14% for 251, but that's a loan. It's not a grant. We are going to get that back as a repayment, and as you'll read in the memo, the cover memo, we're using the transformation fund that was recently adopted, and I'll get to that when I talk about 251 in detail. But it's going to be current funds we have. We aren't going out and we'll pay interest back to ourselves, but that 14% is really a loan. So it's our commitment, we're putting it in, but we will get it back just like the developer gets their money back. So we have on the right side a lot of good information about what the deal is all about. Again, I referenced the developer equity in the middle. $3.1 million for the bank, just under $1 million for Franz. and just over 3.1 million again for 251 South River, excuse me. Fantastic to see. Does anyone have any questions on those while I take a swallow? Love some. No questions. All right, so what I'd like to do is just do a quick summary of each item and then throw it open for any other questions.
We used to always have water.
So first item, 250090 is the Aurora National Bank Building. It is, we are looking at the area that is 8 stories tall. This development concerns floors 4 through 8 for turning them into residential. Floors basement through 3 will remain commercial. They have some tenants in there now, and they hope to keep those tenants as long as they can. The tenants that are up above, most of them have moved out, and they will be out in time for the construction. They would like to get moving fairly quickly, but I do want to address again what I had said. So if you don't want to look at this, the memo has exactly what our sources of funds are for this. So it says clearly that we have only a pay-as-you-go TIF. We anticipate this going from approximately a $50,000 tax bill, because it does have some things in it. This is a repurposing, but it will go up over $100,000 in taxes, and we will take that tax increment to pay off our $2 million back to the transformation funds. Thank you. This does propose this already has a TIF. This is TIF number 10. It has 20 years on it, so we don't have to do anything as far as our calendar goes to wait for the TIF to be adopted. And the developer has asked to have 100% of the increment, and what we have said in order to make the schools whole, and the developer also stated that they had no children in the Hobbs development. So they asked for the 100% increment, and we said if you want that, then we will have a rule. In the RDA it says if you have between 1 and 5 students, you will pay 10% of the tax increment back to us. And if you have from 6 to 10 students, remember this is 30 units total. So 6 to 10, you would pay 20% back. Our typical sharing formulas have been 10 or 20% for the TIFs. So this mirrors that. It just throws in the, because the deal is so tight, it says, well, if you have no service demand, though, we don't want to put the sharing in. So that's why we say when the students show up, you will get get reimbursed.
Marty, how will you monitor that?
So that will be and it says so in the RDA that the district and the developer are required to provide a report on the number of students each year.
Okay, so the district will benefit by reporting it appropriately.
Right.
Thank you.
In this case, we will also do that right before the tax increment is received, but we know how much it is. So then we can do a timely distribution. In short, it'll be in the fall every year. So again, I think I've hit all the highlights, and just to try and emphasize it, we're very happy that we're in a situation where we aren't using any tax dollars but for the development. If this doesn't happen, the taxes don't come in. And so it is the very much a simple TIF but for test. So, and the TIF is already there. So it's a very straightforward process for the bank. Any questions on?
Alderman Seville?
And this is for 48 units?
No, this is for 30.
30.
The 48 is for the 251 project.
Okay, great.
Any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Franco, I'm sorry. Alderman Franco, do you have a question?
I do not know.
Alderman Barrero?
Yes, I wanted to make a comment. So I think these developments are great. It's good to get people living downtown. It's a positive impact. But I'm having a hard time with the revenue sharing part of the TIF. I recall when I was wearing a different hat on the school board, some familiar faces here came to the board and introduced a new concept with micro-TIFs, and that those micro-TIFs are going to have revenue sharing with the taxing bodies. And so that's where I'm having difficulty with this, that there's not a revenue sharing, starting out. I understand that and appreciate the efforts made to get the revenue sharing if students are present in those developments. But I just need to make that statement that this is something that it's not in Ward 1, but the majority of Ward 1 is in District 131, and so any additional tax revenues that are generated from these types of projects help the school district as a whole, and therefore benefit residents in Ward 1 or the other east side wards. And so just wanted to see if there's a way to maybe make a change if it's possible.
During the development of the redevelopment agreement, we had an awful lot of negotiations. We went so when we say 80-20, that means an 80% to the developer and 20% to the city. We looked at a 20% to the developer and 80% to the city. And then when you flip-flop those, what we do is we then, if we are going to get 80% of the money out of a TIF, then we take that money and give them up front, like we're going to do with 251. And the developer came back and said, we think we're okay with our financing, that we can handle all the financing up front. And I referenced that, the amount of, for a $5 million deal, they're putting in $1 million. That's fantastic that they're willing to put that in. So at the end of the day, we were looking at, instead of fronting the money and then having the TIF pay the city back, we are now saying the risk is all on the developer. If they don't, for instance, if they don't get the restaurant, oh, sorry, that's the other deal. But if they don't get everything built and assessed out, it's totally on them. And we don't have to worry that we can't make a payment for if we loaned ourselves money. So it's very important. To your point, are there other ways to look at it? Yes, there are. I think this is the most efficient way for the city to approach it. And it's also, in this case, we didn't have to tap the transformation fund, which we are hitting in agenda item 250093. We felt that it was a good mix. We have half the deal, if you will, is pay as you go, and the other half, being 250093, is upfront. So, and again, no forgivable loans, i.e. grants. I will stop there and say, we could look at other ways. Again, that I don't think that they'll be as efficient for what we have, but for the development, there isn't any funds to share.
And I think that's important that we look at that but-for test. But for this development, we wouldn't be having this conversation about any money to share. We wouldn't be talking about anything. We'd just be status quo. But for is important for us to focus on. And although, I remember the conversations we had with District 131 and talking about those micro-TIFs. Matter of fact, it was Marty Lyons here that brought that concept of micro-TIF to the city of Aurora. But recognize, and just for the audience and for anybody who might be watching at home, the purpose of a school district receiving a certain amount of tax dollars is to ensure that there's money to provide for the students when students are generated from a particular residential unit. Now, school districts get a windfall when there are no students at all in the area for factories that may be in that area or other businesses that don't generate children. But most of the tax dollars that come from any property tax is to ensure that students that go to that school are taken care of based on living in that particular district. In this particular case, I think we've got to look at the fact that they have talked about what we need to do to take care of those very same kids in District 131, should there be kids that need dollars to cover their education. 1 to 5 got 10% of the TIF going to the school district. If there's 6 to 10, you got another 10%. So a total of 20% based on the number of kids. If there are no kids, there is no impact, no financial impact to the school, none. And if we don't do this development at all, nothing happens. If we do this development at some point in the future, once the TIF expires, the school district will get all of the money, whether there's kids living there or not.
With the expiration, to try and continue our thought process, with the expiration of TIF 1 and TIF 3, we will have, with this TIF, with the proposed TIFs for the next 2 items, we will still have, I believe, I haven't done the exact calculation, but we'll have less property value under a TIF and less acreage under TIFs. We have, the finance staff send me Christmas cards that say, why do I have 20 TIFs when we used to have 8? It's a lot of upkeep for us to do those micro TIFs, but it frees up, again, we hope and we continue to hope, we're not asking to, and the developer asked, that right now this TIF doesn't cover their parking lot or the area where the drive-through is. They can't spend any of the TIF dollars on that area. We said we weren't going to change the boundary of the TIF and expand it. We left it right where it was. So we're trying to be good stewards of TIFs, and that's what the micro TIF is all about. And when TIF districts 5 and 6 come off in about 5 to, I don't know if Chris, 5 and 6 is it 2033 or 2030? So they come off within the next 10 years. The whole Fox River, all the way up from going north, will no longer be TIFed. And a long time ago, people TIFed the whole area, hoping development would come. And we're not doing that. So we will free up an awful lot of acreage when those come back come out from under the TIF.
And also to add to the but-for test, but for the development, there'd be no money to even be talking about and no development at all. I'll add in, there's no way a developer is going to simply develop a property and not have a return on his investment. The TIF, this bridging of this gap, gives the developer incentive to want to develop so we can get a return. And as Marty pointed out, that return is not a big windfall. They're not making huge money on this.
It's right on the, right there, their equity. I think in the case of the bank building, they're earning 4%, 4.4% on $3 million. You can earn that on a T-bill. And they're taking a risk.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this developer, Jay from JH is here. Many of you know him. I'd be happy to have him come up to explain a little bit about the deal from his perspective. We always want to give folks an opportunity for both this deal and the next one on the agenda.
Jay, you want to step up? This microphone over here. Alderman Masiacos, did you have a question?
I do have a question, but I'm going to tell you that even getting married is a risk, Mr. Lyons. Planting a seed in the ground is a risk. But I wanted to ask you, Exhibit C1 and C2 and Exhibit E and these documents are all empty. Are we going to be provided with those documents?
Let me go. Can you give me a name?
All of them, all the documents in the back of those contracts.
Yes.
The exhibits,
The short answer is-
aren't provided for all 3. Exhibit E is about timeline. I think C1 and C2 is about the project documents.
If you refresh your iPad, we did visit with JH today and put the timeline in. Alex is, but that may not be at the back of the document. It's in as an exhibit.
Can you step up so we can hear? Okay.
Timelines. Good evening, council members, honorable mayor. The timelines for 62 South Broadway, being known as Franz, and for 2 South Broadway are under Exhibit G2, pro forma sources and use it timeline. The last page of Exhibit G2 is the timeline.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay.
So it's there?
But what about Exhibit C1 and C2?
C1 is in there. Allow me to.
C2 is in one of them, but not in all of them is C2, and C1's missing. So what I'm trying to get at is the drawings, documents.
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry.
We get square footages, we have numbers, we don't have anything else depicting how you got that information.
I can handle.
Sure.
So the drawings, in some cases, we've had drawings, in other cases, that happens as a part of the permitting process. So when you look at the timeline, we have talked about what these will look like. We also have, in this case, the historic, the Park Service, who is also reviewing the size of the units and more specifically the hallways because they are getting historic tax credits.
But there has to be a sketch. I mean, you're giving us,
We have looked at
Mr.
sketches.
Debo gave us a total number of units being provided. I mean,
We
there has to be
we
at
can
least a sketch
provide,
somewhere.
I believe we can provide
Okay.
sketches that would be then finalized through the permitting process with schematic design and all of that. So
But
when
we should
it's
have
get-
some schematic design, something here on this, in this docket. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, So the short answer is yes, we can provide.
We can, and you could.
Mr. Debo?
We can. We've been just going back and forth with the historic people in terms of the size of the unit and so on. But the number of units will stay the same.
That's correct.
Jay,
yes.
you want to explain?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Jay Pinnacle from JH Real Estate Partners. We do have all the schematic drawings done already. We did review with the staff. There was a little bit of back and forth in terms of how we can get, get the layout a little bit cleaner. The unit sizes also was a topic of conversation, so we're actually revisiting that. We should have something finalized. Well, the Franz development, everything is finalized. The bank building, we should have something finalized in the next week or so.
To your point, then, we will provide the one we do have, and then through the permitting process, we'll end up with final designs.
Can we see one before next week, Tuesday?
That's what we will, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And one more question. Do you still have the same cell phone number?
I do.
Because I'm sure you're not going to hang around town, so we can't come to an office to find you. Because I'd love to ask some, I have some more questions offline.
I will be here tomorrow in the morning. And I would make time, if that works, to talk about anything in detail.
Okay.
Talked with another alderman earlier
All right.
today on the issues, so.
Fantastic. I wish I would have known you were going to be here, Mr. Lyons. It's a treat.
They keep me under wraps.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Bate?
a small typo on 25-0090, Exhibit G2, page 3. Last one, certificate of completion. I'm assuming that is 10/29/26.
So
It
that
says
was on the
0/29/26.
timeline?
Yeah.
Okay, so. Thank you. We have been working on the timelines with JH because we want to make sure that they are able to work in series as much as possible instead of taking on a lot of them so all at the same time. So there is a little bit of staggering between this one and Franz. Franz will start a little bit later, and part of that's also because of the TIF approval process. So, you'll also see that, and I apologize for the just getting the timeline in, but we kept on working on those to make sure we had the most up-to-date. But that should also be in an updated iPad when you look at that.
Any other questions?
So, Jay, is there anything you wish to?
Oh.
And please stay up in case we have questions on Franz specifically.
Any other questions from the council? Continue, Mr. Lyons.
That completes the report for the Aurora National Bank.
Okay, go on to the next one.
The Franz Building, located at 62 and 66, there's a vacant lot there as well, is a smaller development, about $5.5 million. It also involves 10 units, and then because we've had a little bit of issue on the timing of our buildings that do residences and then do restaurants on the first floor, we endeavored to break out and put a lot of language in the deal to say, here's how the residential part, the 10 units will go. And then here's how the restaurant, we hope, will go. In this case, the restaurant is not going to be owned by JH. So that was a little bit different at Hobbs. So in this case, they wish to move forward with renting out to somebody, and they will come in and complete the restaurant. This deal does include approximately $560,000 of build-out costs to make it a very nice white box area, so a restaurant can come in and then do their own customization for the finals. So I just want to make sure that that's a little bit clear, because JH now has 2 of their 3 restaurants at Hobbs up and going and very successful. So the deal, as I noted, $5.5 million, and again, you see $965,000 of equity in there, $2 million for a loan, $2 million for historic tax credits. And I didn't point this out, but in all of the deals, because they're so tight up front, all the developers are deferring their fees. Some are JH is deferring their fees for 12 years. They're taking in this case, they're taking their $507,000 fee, dividing it by 12, and in the first year after opening, they start to pay themselves their developer fee over 12 years with no interest on it or anything. It's just a flat amount. That helps the deal go. And if you look at the pro forma, you can see that the pro forma is very skinny while they're paying themselves back, and then they get to what would be a normal return on their equity. So they don't earn anything on their equity for the first 13 years. They're getting their fee, which is still money to them, but they're also working for it. So it's not really their money earning anything, it's them earning the money. So with that said, it is fairly straightforward. It does require a new TIF district for them to have a pay-as-you-go TIF. It's a fairly small amount. The property is currently assessed at $6,000. It'll go up to about $33,000, so there's a $27,000 tax increment that they're proposing they get 100% of it. And like the bank building then, with only 10 units, we've said if one child is present, you have to pay, we get to keep 10% back, and if 2 or more are present in the 10 apartments, then we get to keep 20% back on the tax increment to be distributed to the taxing bodies. So it's not us keeping it back for the city's benefit. So with that said, and again, it's the same developer, so they are saying they haven't had children in in Hobbs, and so they're willing to take the risk. If it shows up, they will pay. If the children, I said it, my apologies. If children show up, they will then have this fee. So very happy to see this building, and everyone can see what the shape is. Both buildings combined are a great thing to be improving as we start to redo the Broadway corridor. So,
Just quick question, just so we're all on the same page. Jay, what year was that building built? How old is it?
The Franz building, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, so over 100 years old?
Definitely close.
1920, so over 100 years old. And how long has it been vacant? Do you know, Mr. Curley, how long that building's been vacant since
or
the
at least
Franz was
the
in?
first floor.
The Franz building has been vacant since the fire, and that's got to be at least a decade.
So over 10 years with fire. So you're redeveloping this 100-year-old building that has been affected and pretty much destroyed by fire. And we're talking about incentives that if these incentives didn't exist, there'd be no way this developer or any developer would come in and redevelop that building, that historical building. Is that correct?
Yes, and that is clearly stated in all of the statements at the beginning of the RDA. So everyone's attesting to that in the redevelopment agreement at the beginning. That's how we start all of our agreements, that it's not going to happen without the incentive.
Any questions on the France building? No questions on that one, sir. I'm sorry, Alderman Seville.
And there's going to be an addition next door, or is that just the patio area?
We're going to do an enclosed patio.
Enclosed.
enclosed patio.
Okay.
So, and I'll dovetail a little bit, if you read especially in the RDA, what we've said is, they've said we're going to be a property owner of the restaurant, so they call that a propco, and they're going to get rent, and then the restaurant's going to come in, make their money, pay rent, and then we will come back if the restaurant needs help through the food and beverage and our sales tax. We will work on an agreement with them to help they've just done 3 restaurants at an average cost of about 1.5 million or just a little bit above that. So using that number, we're looking at, they're putting in 560, and then we have a formula that says, depending on how much the restaurant thinks they're gonna have in sales, we'll share new taxes, the food and beverage and sales tax, on a 50-50 basis. So if they have, the number in the agreement says if they have a $2 million sales, they can get $27,500 a year for 10 years. And then we even talked about potentially, when we get to them, we might extend that if that's what it takes, so that if they said I could get a 15-year note, then to get them up to maybe 500,000, then we'd share 500. We each put that amount in, all new taxes going to our agreement, and we have a $1.6 million build out for a restaurant, just like the other 3 new ones over on River.
And who owns title to the vacant land next door?
We are going to provide them with the land for $1. It has an appraisal of $5,900 and some dollars, and we said that wasn't worth it to put it into all of the agreement. So the attorney recommended to have it just transact at closing for $1. So at conveyance, you owe us $1.
Okay, and that was the old Benbro Hotel that the city took down because it was being not maintained and about ready to collapse, so.
There was something there?
Yeah, the Benbro Hotel. Been there for
How long was that
years.
taken down?
There are many towns that,
15, maybe 15,
Really? Wow.
maybe 20 years ago.
Okay.
and there are many towns that have taken that approach, and their town is 30% parking lots. They took down all the buildings to make them pad ready, if you will. We've tried to preserve our buildings.
And if you remember, before JH Real Estate took over the Hobbs, it was within about a month of falling over after the polar vortex. We removed the Onion Dome years before that because that collapsed. So saving these old historical buildings and keeping the charm of Aurora, you know, has been one of the goals, and they've with JH Realty, and they've done a great job at it. And we've got to keep some buildings that have been a part of our skyline and a part of our history, for the last 100 years. So it's a win-win for us.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Smith.
so with you just saying that, I think we all need to be thankful that JH is here doing yet another project in our city, because we can look at what you guys have created with the Hobbs and know how successful you are and how successful you will be with this new building. So you guys have done such great work with the Hobbs, the apartments, the restaurants, and the one below soon to come. So I look forward to seeing you move forward with this new project, and
Thank
I
you, we
appreciate
appreciate
that
it.
you are investing in the city of Aurora, so thank you for being here.
Appreciate it.
And just one reminder, Dave mentioned it at the beginning, but, so they own the bank. For this site, we put out an RFQ, and we got, they provided a qualified response. We got one other response that was not sufficient to be considered qualified. So we're still hopeful that down the road, when we do RFQs for our properties, we'll get 5 folks lining up with no incentives. We're not there yet. For Bilter, we had an awful lot of interest out on the expressway. We had a lot of interest in that property. Just shows you that we're still not quite there in the downtown.
Alderman Missackles.
One more question. Thank you, Mayor. To the developer, that restaurant, is this going to be a pure vanilla box, or are you going to provide any restaurant-type infrastructure?
It's going to be a vanilla box with an HVAC system, grease trap. Obviously, we're going to sprinkle the space and provide enough amperage in terms of electric panels.
Okay.
And a black iron, yes. And then we're going to build out the patio space the shell for the patio space, and they're going to do the improvements on the inside.
Because we have that terminal building, it's not ready fully for a restaurant. It needs a lot of work, so I just want to find out if this one's going to be ready.
Well, that's why we put all that terminology that it's not a part of the deal. And one thing I do want to call attention to, we talked long about penalizing JH if they didn't put it in. We said up until 2 weeks ago, we had language that said they will lose 10% of the tax increment if they don't get the restaurant in by 1 year after the TIF is adopted. So the TIF will be adopted at the end of the year, and 1 year after that, if you don't have the restaurant in, 10%. But if you look at the pro forma, they're relying on $150,000 in rent from the restaurant to help power the whole deal for the rest of the building. They have a huge vested interest in getting that space rented out. Otherwise, they are subsidizing those houses. I mean, those units.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
did you just say that you weren't interested in putting it into the contract?
No, we said we were interested.
Oh, okay.
They felt that it was a double penalty because they're already going to take a $150,000 a year hit if they don't have that apartment, that restaurant in as soon as possible.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman Seville?
I assume, Jay, that you're probably already talking to potential restaurateurs.
We are, yes. We did have initial conversations with 2 restaurant groups. They're very, primitive, though. We're talking through economics and so on and so forth. Like we did with the Hobbs building, we start the process, way before we start developing. We were successful at 110 where we were able to get the foreign exchange lease done even before we started the development for the apartments. That's what we're going to try to do over here as well. But post-COVID, like everyone knows, it's a challenge to get full-service concepts to come and do a new build-out. They want to go into restaurant spaces, second-generation restaurant spaces, to limit the investment that they're putting in.
Any other questions?
And one more item that didn't come up, but I will bring it forth, parking. So parking in the downtown, that's not required in the core, but the bank has ample parking on site. We have spaces along the side and back of the Franz building to allow for parking. I'd like to thank John Curley, Tracy, Josh, several of his staff members. We're still working on some of the final apartment design, but they did help out tremendously with making sure we at least had 1-to-1 for these smaller downtown units for parking for each of the units. I know that we have, the Hobbs had some parking challenges, and we also Terminal, we worked through that. So there is language that we are to have parking for both of the properties. And we also, when we get to 251, have a unique solution for parking in the first 5 years of the deal at least. We have longer-term plans in the South Warehouse District that we're looking at to help with parking as more development comes.
All right, that's all for, I think we're good with both those items, the bank building and the Franz building. We're going to go ahead and put those on unfinished, and they're going to be they're going to be taken off consent anyway. So we'll put those on unfinished just so we can have a conversation about them at City Council with the rest of our aldermen here, because we know it's going to be pulled off. So we might as well go ahead and put it on unfinished now for those 2 items. So thank you, Jay, for stepping up and speaking on those 2 items. Let's go ahead and speak on 251 South River now.
So 250093 is 251 South River. We're looking at it as kind of a new development area, the South Warehouse District. Not sure what the boundaries will be for that. And I think that's going to be a collaborative process over the next 6 months, especially if we're talking about micro TIF. There will be a desire to try and limit the TIF, but at the same time, maybe pick a few places that we know haven't developed and move them forward. Just like in TIF 10, when we did Terminal, we did TIF 10, but we reached out and grabbed the bank building in hopes of maybe future it would be, we would get development there, and it's worked out. So,
And let me just say, what we're calling the warehouse district would be River Street going south past Cross, right near where Jay and Harish are redeveloping 110 Cross. And that area, similar to what we saw with DAC, is an area where a lot of factories were in, and the factories that have been sitting there for 100 years that are still there will probably need a lot of cleaning for the contamination that most factories bring. So when we talk about a TIF in that area being a micro TIF, if it expands past that micro size, past that micro size that Marty introduced, it's because we know there are going to be issues there that we need to address long term, similar to what we saw with the DAC development and when they started digging in the ground, and all the stuff that had been buried over the decades and decades and generations. So I'll let you continue on as we recognize what area we're talking about when we're talking about the warehouse district.
I'm just going to make one note. So this deal is a little bit different than the other two. It is just outside the downtown, but within walking distance. And we did a lot of distance measurements when we were looking at parking, how far to the south lots of the library. And so we know that it's a fairly close walk to the downtown. Once again, when you look at this deal, you see that the developer has over $3 million into the deal. The big differences with this deal is the developer does not own the property, but they do have it under contract. The seller wants $2.5 million. We negotiated long and hard on that to try and change that. They're standing firm because it impacted how much of an incentive that the city was going to have to put in was tied to both the land costs and the construction costs. So during our review of this development, we reduced their costs by more than $1.5 million. We said that we needed to have the costs lower. Part of that had to do with, it's a unique building. You saw the picture. They wanted to have parking underneath. And we said that we just can't support the parking underneath because of how costly it will be. And so we've come up with alternative solutions using a combination of surface lot and on-street parking that we again have reviewed with John Curley and his staff to get us to 1-to-1 on the parking.
Marty,
So-
before you go forward, I'm a little confused. I have to back up a little bit. You said the developer does not own the property, but we're moving forward with it. Can
Well,
you clarify?
So when we look at the redevelopment agreement, they do have to obtain the property before we do anything. So we're going to, in this process, the developer would like to have the agreement before going forward with buying a $2.5 million parcel. So they want the commitment of the city long-term to, so we'll put our money, but we're not putting our money in, if you will, until that we have to have the property under ownership. We have to have, what was the other trigger? We will be started on the TIF, but their first step will be to get the property under ownership after they have all of their historic tax credit information approved. So they'll have those dollars locked up that the Park Service has said, all right, we agree with your design. We will let you use, because that's $3.5 million to this deal, is to be able to use tax credits. So they have to get that financing all in place so that they can then buy the property. Then we go forward with the construction.
So if there's no agreement on the sale of the property, this is,
There's
no.
no contract.
We have a contract.
Property is under-
Go ahead, Dave.
Property is under contract.
Ms. Dewa, you want to step up to that microphone? Go ahead.
It's not, in the real estate business, it's not unusual for a property to be under.
I'm in the real estate business, I
I know,
understand.
but subject to, commercial due diligence. So essentially what's happening is this is and you could correct me if I'm wrong, because the contract buyer is here, that.
Step on up, brother. Step up to that microphone.
So
brother.
you've come to an agreed amount of selling the sale of the property.
So just so we all understand, you have the property under contract, and once we work out the deal with the city that we're talking about now, you guys are going to purchase the property so we can continue on with the deal with the city. Go ahead.
Correct. So Fernando Barrera, the developer. So the property is contingent on the RDA.
Okay. That's all you need to say.
Right. I just go ahead and stay there for a minute in case we have any questions. Go ahead, Marty.
And after, since you are aware of who JH is, and also the committee got a short bio from Mr. Barrero, so we'd love to have the opportunity to do that when we're done with Q&A. So we answered the property question. We are, because of that property question, we're still working a little bit on the timeline. And what we're trying to do is manage the timing of the tax increment, because we did a lot of homework and reconfirmed things that we need to do the inducement resolution so that any costs after that, even if the TIF is not completed, would be eligible. So we're going to get start our inducement process for the TIF. Then they will purchase, and then move forward with construction over the next 18 months. And that gives the TIF a chance to be approved as well. They provided us a very good construction timeline, and we just have yet to integrate the purchase and the TIF into that process. You can see by and I'm addressing Alderman Masiacos because he asked about timelines, but we have a good TIF timeline, and we just need to integrate it into their construction timeline with the purchase, and they were still negotiating a purchase date with the seller.
Questions?
So that.
Go ahead, continue.
So the one thing I'd say, so this is 48 units, and again, 23 spaces in a lot off-street, 6 spaces on Middle, and 12 spaces along River, where we will sign it for residential parking. Then we've already talked with planning and zoning on that subject. Our long-term goal is to end up with surface or other parking in the area, just like we have in the downtown. We not as much, because we hope that you won't have as many cars per person, but the long-term goal is to support this with off-street parking. Right now, we don't need it, so we won't require it, and they could picture 10 years down the road, a city lot that's a monthly permit lot that residents could use.
Gotcha.
They told me not to tell them.
All right, all good.
So it's 48 units, and as we noted, thank you, I didn't touch it. But it's 48 units, and again, we think it's really important. One thing Dave didn't mention, if you remember, the housing study said that we could support approximately 250 units a year for 5 years. They actually said 990 units to 1,260 units over the next 5 years the downtown could support. Putting these all together with DAC, we're at about 470 units. So we still have the potential to put in more units before we would have any kind of saturation. And our all the current places are all rented up, so we know we're not there yet from that regard. So the $2 million up front, we plan on using the transformation fund for $2 million. We have a debt service schedule that's worked out that should pay off in 20 years at 2.5%. So that new fund that has $9 million for MOED to try and spur development will be used its first time with the tax increment fund paying back an approximate $119,000 debt service payment with the new taxes. So the new taxes come in, pays off the debt. The transformation fund it'll take it a while, but it'll be made whole and be available for someone to use as soon as that note is paid off. And it's a note to us. We're not bringing the developer in any way, except if the assessor does not assess at the level we need to, then the developer's paying less taxes than they thought they would. And so that would make their deal look better, but we're out money. So we have what's called the deficiency payment. If the amount that the assessor says is the new tax increment is less than what's in the pro forma, they have to pay us a deficiency payment so that we're whole, especially in the beginning. If after a certain time, the amount of tax increment goes above the debt service payment, we'll pay them back. We're not trying to get anything over on them. So picture it, a debt service going like this, and the money coming in kind of goes like this. It gets bigger over time. So we believe that we'll start off a little bit under what we need, and then we'll, at the end, towards the end of the TIF, we'll have more than what we need for that debt service payment, and we'll work with the developer to make sure that internal bond is paid.
Questions?
Sorry. I'm
No.
the only one. I do
Nope.
have a question and a comment. So I just have to share with you, my heart did skip a little beat when I found out that this building was going to be turned into apartments. I know we need the apartments, I support the project, but Company 251 is a beautiful wedding venue in which my daughter just got married in November. So it was a little hard to swallow because it is very beautiful. In saying that, have you done the numbers using the but-for on the tax dollars that were brought in through Company 251 as a wedding venue versus what we will receive as a city as it turns into an apartment
So,
unit?
per the assessor's office, this building is only being assessed to create a tax levy of $15,000 currently. And so, and then you take
You have no
2,000
idea how much that wedding cost.
and I'm not even going to go into that part of, because my daughter just got married last year too. But in any event, when you take 48 units at potentially, think of that unit as a condominium, at $2,000 a unit for taxes, $100,000, $96,000. So we have this pegged at $115,000 for the first full stable year. And what's important about that is, again, we want him to make enough money to stay in business. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So the deficiency pay, we're not aiming to try and get a tax levy really high and then not that crunch his business. So we put that right into the pro forma and said, still works. If we slim down the costs on the construction so that we could actually raise the costs on the operations just a little. Their initial estimate was about $101,000, $102,000 for the taxes, and we said, well, it'll work better at $115,000. Will you agree? So then it's up to us to make sure, and we're going to meet with the township assessor to talk about all of our current deals and say, we want those to be assessed right, so when all of this wave goes through in 3 years, they'll be assessed right. So,
Alderwoman, 2 of the floors are completely vacant, and have never been touched. So even though the venue is gorgeous, and we were as disappointed as you.
They
when-
use one of those for photography, I know, as we were there.
Yeah, but there's a lot of work that needs to get done
Oh,
for
wow.
those to renovate. And we were as disappointed as you, but the seller just independently decided to do this. So this is the reuse that we wanted to do. But there is a lot of work to be done on those other floors to just bring it up to any kind of code and so on.
the part of the deal is this does have to pass the TIF test. So we have to be cognizant of not making it too big, the TIF, but also including this area. We don't have to do that with the bank. It passed the test already.
Anything else that you want to offer before we go on for the
Mr. Mayor,
insurance?
can I?
Tell a little bit about, and you whatever you said back at finance, a little bit about yourself and what you plan to bring to the warehouse district.
Mayor, City Council, thank you. Appreciate everything, all the support. Everybody from economic development, David Debo, Alex, Marty, been a pleasure working with everybody. So my name is Fernando Borrera. I'm East Aurora. I was born and raised in East Aurora. Went to Aurora Central Catholic. I started my own real estate business 2 years after going to Benedictine University. My business mostly consists of construction management, strategic acquisitions from income-producing property. Definitely excited of expanding a different arm in my business with development, and definitely excited about this project. So, once I saw this project on the market, I was definitely excited. You know, it was a great building, a lot of history tied to it, you know, and one of the reasons I love these buildings in downtown Aurora is because they don't make them like they used to, right? So this building is heavy timber, right? So, you know, brick, heavy timber, you can't beat it, right? So one of the goals for this project would be to leave the heavy timber, leave exposed ceilings and exposed brick. So making them really unique, right? So one thing that, you know, we were going back and forth is the parking. So the parking, I know there's been a lot of discussions with underground parking. You know, I figured Class A apartments in this building would be fantastic, right? So, you know, underground parking, the cost to do it was just skyrocket, right? And we could only fit 12 spaces due to the columns, right? So we talked about a 2-story steel structure, but at the end of the day, we noticed that when I got the survey from the seller, that the property butts up to the north, all the way to the north. So basically butts up to the property. There's an easement. So we managed to fit in a little bit more parking spaces than there is now, especially putting in 6 more spots on Meadow Avenue. So it'd be close to 30, actually close to 30, so 28 parking spots on site. So, and with street parking, we figured we would get to that 1-to-1 ratio. So definitely, some of the amenities, I want to bring up the amenities because I figured, you know, this is going to be a great building. I think we'll get this leased out before we're done with construction. So instead of doing underground parking, we've decided to do pickleball courts on the lower level. Pickleball courts, a fitness center. There's going to be a theater room, right? So it's definitely going to have top-notch amenities. So I like the smiles on you guys' faces, so that's good, right? So yeah, definitely excited. I think this is going to be a great development, and I appreciate everybody's support, and I appreciate you know, working with Marty, Alex, Mr. David Debo, and Mayor. Thank you as well.
Mr. Mayor,
Any questions for the developer? Alderman Smith.
when can we look forward to seeing a timeline for this?
As of right now, we have to do the TIF, correct? So we have to implement the TIF, so that's around 6 to 9 months, correct?
Yes, but I'll answer. The underground, we talked about that in theory, concept, so we'll want to review that, and we will want to get some kind of drawings to highlight what that looks like to make sure that is all fine. So we'll put that into the mix of our timeline, again, with the notion of having our all of their financing, the preliminary drawings, all done before we go to inducement. So that's, we've got to give them a few months to make sure that John Curley and his team get a chance to do a little back and forth, that we're fine with the plans as designed. So I envision this being more on the same timeline as Franz, that we're going to have that slight delay in the start as we finish off, in this case, as we finish off now the underground that we were talking about just last week. So the short answer is we hope to have a timeline to you before next Tuesday, and that timeline might adjust a little bit depending on the sale date.
Yeah, it would, something would be better than nothing.
Will do.
Any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Burrow.
I have just one question for the 3 projects. What is the feedback from the school districts on these? Are they supportive of these, or
Well, the
what's their
school
feelings?
district definitely does not want a TIF. So I think that's important to point out. They were glad that we had the clawbacks, if you will, in the JH projects. The other one, because the way it's set up, we don't have anything in there right now, but remember, we're going to get 100% of the TIF. The city does. So right now we have it so that we have it projected that it'll just be enough to pay the $2 million. That could change, and when the TIF is coming back to us, then our ability to share is between us and the school district.
All right, no other questions? I will put this one on. Go ahead, David.
I just would be remiss if I didn't thank Chris Minnick as well, and also Josh and of course, Jesse and Josh in the back. This parking issue took hundreds of hours to analyze, we're trying to make the deal work, and we were looking and looking and looking and really trying to make the numbers work. And they spent a lot of time just on finite engineering details. So just want to thank everybody. When we come up here, you're seeing us, but the team behind it is just incredible to get here. So thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you very much. We'll put this item on unfinished and have a lot more conversation, I expect, about it next Tuesday. But this is a very good project. Fernando, brother, thank you very much for your investment in all these old properties in the city of Aurora. All right, let's go on to the next portion of the
got one
agenda.
more.
You got one more?
So
finance?
the final thing for the Finance Committee is 25-0096, a discussion on modification of the mileage reimbursement amount for the aldermen. So what we had talked about at the last meeting is that, there's a pool of money that we get for mileage reimbursements for the aldermen. $500 is allocated per alderman. Some people go above it, some people don't turn in their mileage at all. So we're trying to figure out right now how to ensure that those people that go to legitimate places, if they go over the 500 mark, because we don't want to restrict anybody from going to places, how do we accomplish that? So right now, we're looking at one of two paths. One, you can increase the budget, or two, and this is where an office policy, and we're waiting for the alderman's office to come up with a policy, that maybe we just take the pool of the money, and at the end of the year, if you've gone over, then there'll be money left over, and we can reimburse you after the fact. The problem, though, is that we haven't been keeping good accounting of when we do mileage. Some people don't do it at all. Some people do it every month. Some people do it quarterly. But we're going to have to ensure that we get this thing done in a timely manner so we can gauge how much money we have at the end of the year. So nothing's really done yet, but at the end of the day, we are going to make sure that everybody gets paid for what they're supposed to get paid for. It's just a matter of, do we increase the amount, which we're kind of hesitant to do if we're going to have money left over, or make it better that at the end of the year, if I'm over by $100 and there's $1,000 in there, I will get reimbursed that $100. So we're still working with that with the alderman's office, just to make sure that it's fair for everybody, it gets done. And that's really where we're at right now with that.
So this was just a discussion item?
It's just a discussion. We're going to wait for the alderman's office to come up with some procedures for putting in your mileage and when to do it, as expeditiously as possible, and metrics, and then we can get a better feel for what we're going to have at the end of the year. Because we prefer not to put money into the budget if we don't need it, but we don't know because of the reporting has been a little bit inconsistent. So we're going to work on that.
All
Can
right.
I ask a question about this?
Alderman Smith?
Alderman Franco. I, for one, have been one of the aldermen who's never put in for my mileage, so a little hard for me to swallow that we're going to add more money to it. I do travel, I do go to my sites, I do go to, so it's my own fault that I don't do that, but I don't think that it would be a good move to give the money that was allotted for one alderman to another because they happened to keep a record and the other one didn't. But are we going to put something in writing? Are we going to talk more about this?
We're going to talk more about it.
There was a conversation about where, is it from home to the place, or is it from work to the
That's
from
not
the
a
office to
discussion,
the place?
because
So-
the rules and regulations, I think they're federal, is basically you go from either your home if it's closer, or you go from this office to closer. So for example, I come from the west side, I want to go something to the Paramount, it's not from my home to the Paramount, it's from Alderman's office to the Paramount, which we probably haven't been doing as correctly as we should. That might actually keep it lower. So that's why we still want to keep an eye on it, because in my opinion, I would prefer not to throw more money in there if we're going to have money left over at the end of the day anyway. It's kind of like the automatic funds. Why are we going to give us money when we're not spending it? Let's make it, pull it down, and then we could review it after a period of time to see if we need to get more money. Getting more money isn't a problem, but why have $2,000 potentially left over this year and add more money to it when we have the money there? So we're going to figure that out to tighten it up so we can do pretty close every year to what we need to do. But at the end of the day, again, anybody that goes, spends money legitimately, we would like to make sure they're compensated for it. So we want to make sure that's in there however we do it, whether we put more money in or we divvy it up at the end with the pool that's left over.
So the procedures are coming back to the RAP committee
The
then?
procedure will be coming back to the, yeah, well, there'll be more. I just want to tell you that
Thank
we're working on, and that's kind of where we're thinking about right now, but we need more information to see which way to go with this. We want to go the best way, but again, doing what's right by the people to make sure they're compensated for their mileage. So we'll get there.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. That
concludes the Finance Committee report, Mr.
All right,
Mayor.
let's go on. Mike, Chairman Seville, can you give the Public Health, Safety, and Transportation Committee report, please?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The PHS&T meeting was held January 14th. And we had forwarded 2 items to the Committee of the Whole, 24-0855, a resolution establishing the maximum number of Class D downtown fringe on-site consumption liquor licenses and self-service endorsements unofficially related to the application from Rec House LLC at 100 South River Street. And this is in Ward 4. This is the Pocus Building. Mr. Gilly is here. He's just walking in front of us now. If you have any questions, and he's looking to put on a new concept, which is games and arcade. He's looking to actually put in an elevator, the old elevator space. It's going to be on-site and self-service license only. And there'll be no kitchen here, but there will be prepared snacks, but people can always order and get their food delivered, so.
Brother, you want to step up and tell us a little bit about your concept?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak in front of you tonight. Would you like a short summary, or I do have a prepared presentation?
You need, absolutely, show us your presentation.
Okay.
So everybody can see. Oh, there you go, look at that.
There we go.
Fantastic. Okay. So I would like to kind of go over what the concept for Rec House is. I'll go into some of the games and activities that you can find at Rec House. I will go in detail with the food and drinks. But let's get into a little bit about what Rec House is. It will be a vibrant, upscale activity and game bar. It's located right here in downtown Aurora, right along the Fox River, walking distance to all the city's theaters, shops, and all the dining hotspots. And what we're doing is we're really trying to redefine what social entertainment is. We're pairing a dynamic bar atmosphere with an exciting array of games, arcades, and activities. We're going to have an impressive selection of local craft beer on draft, signature cocktails, variety of red and white wines, and it'll be a perfect place to unwind, catch up with friends and family, and really just add a little extra excitement to everyone's night out in downtown Aurora. So before I get into what types of games you can find at Rec House, I think it's very relevant to share a little bit about my background and why I decided to launch Rec House. For the past 14 years, I've worked in what's called the coin-operated amusement industry. For 6 years, I worked for a company called Bandai Namco, a manufacturer of arcade games. So I had the opportunity of working alongside large companies such as Dave & Buster's, Round One, Main Event, Chuck E. Cheese, among many others. And for the past 8 years, I've worked for the largest pinball manufacturer in the world, located in Elk Grove Village. And with that company, I had the opportunity of working with hundreds of bars, bar arcades, other entertainment centers and concepts very similar to Rec House. So I had the pleasure of traveling around the country and seeing a lot of these types of concepts work and really thrive in the communities that they're located in. So Rec House is definitely my concept for the next entertainment hotspot right here in downtown Aurora. So I have signed a lease with Scott at 100 South River Street. This is the second story of Society 57 coffee shop and event space. This space has been vacant for many, many years, and I'm very excited to change that. As you can see from the photos, it has a very gorgeous wooden ceiling, exposed trusses. All of the exterior walls are brick, and with my design of Rec House, I intend to leave all of these features exposed, which definitely protects the integrity and the original design of the building.
Are you seeing that?
No, we can't see anything.
We can't see it.
No pictures.
There's,
Did IT go home?
But it's attached to our Lit Star.
That's where it's working out here.
It's all good.
You guys can't see that on your side?
No, it's all right, just
Not
continue.
anymore.
You're looking at it.
It's on there, it's back on, it's back on.
Okay, perfect. So the first main feature of Rec House, and again, these images are inspiration. These are not mock-ups, but I want to show you the types of games and arcades and activities that you'll find there. So within Rec House, we're going to have 7 game lanes, and patrons will be able to rent out these game lanes on an hourly basis. They'll be able to choose between bocce ball, putter pong, bags, and we'll have bartenders deliver drinks and food options to these game lanes. We're working on some sourcing some technology with wristbands, timer wristbands that will track the duration of the rental, so guests are well aware of how much time they have remaining, similar to Topgolf. One of my personal favorites are shuffleboard tables. I mentioned in the committee last week, if you're lucky enough to find one out in the wild, it's usually at a brewery or other types of venues, and they're typically on the shorter side because there's a lot of space constraints. At Rec House, we're going to have two 18-foot shuffleboard tables side by side. We'll also be hosting tournaments and leagues around those. Some fan favorites, pool darts and foosball. We're going to have two pool tables, 3 dart boards, and 1 or 2 foosball tables. And again, you're going to see a trend with a lot of the games here. All of them will have leagues and tournaments, and I'll get more into that later, but it's definitely a great way to bring people downtown throughout the middle of the week. One of the unique parts of Rec House will be to bring in games around the country, around the world that people have not heard or seen. This is a perfect example of that. This is called Terraball. This is made by a manufacturer out of California. It's kind of a blend between pool, shuffleboard, miniature golf with the goal to roll the ball down the table. You're aiming for these holes similar to pool. You're trying to either use the obstacles in the table or avoid them to your advantage. And what's fun about this game is all these obstacles can be moved, so each game is different. So again, bringing in games that people haven't seen frequently, so each time you come in, you'll have a new experience, you'll see something new that you haven't seen before. And of course, with my experience in pinball, pinball has become incredibly popular over the past decade, more so than even the 80s and 90s. If you've been to some of the breweries around the area, a lot of breweries are adapting pinball because they get patrons to stay longer. We can form leagues around them, and again, leagues will bring people in on a Tuesday or Wednesday night to the downtown area. Another couple fan favorites, skee ball and basketball. And there'll be a great variety of arcade games, non-redemption, video only. We're not trying to be Chuck E. Cheese or Round One with a redemption counter. We want games that you can, that are a little bit longer gameplay, that have some more play value with them, but are also fun and competitive. So here is the layout, the most recent blueprint of Rec House. In the upper right-hand corner is currently that's an elevator shaft that's empty. We will be installing a brand new elevator, and there's a staircase in the upper right-hand corner as well. The entrance of this building, so on the north side of the screen, that is Benton Street. So the entrance will be close to the bridge where Benton Street and the river meet. The lower first floor building of Society 57 is on the west side of the building, so on the left side of the screen you can kind of see an escape route. That is the front side of Society 57. So throughout the layout you can see all the 7 game lanes, the pinball, the pool tables, the shuffleboard. Of course, this would not be a complete concept without a beautiful bar in the center. The bar can hold 32 seats. It has a unique layout with kind of a circle table built into the bar. Kind of a newer concept, but some people like to sit at tables with their friends, but they also like to sit at a bar, so it's kind of merging those two concepts to kind of bring in something unique. In the lower left-hand corner is the row of arcade machines, and then kind of on the, you can kind of see where the tap wall is. And again, this is a self-service tap wall. This is the same concept as Tapville in the Fox Valley Mall. They also have a location in downtown Aurora. And if you've ever been to in Plainfield, I forget the bowling alley's name there, but self-service tap walls are becoming widely popular. In my travels around the country to different concepts, especially Charlotte most recently, most of the locations around there have the self-service pour, where you purchase an RFID card from a bartender. It's tracked either on an actual card like a credit card, or they have wristband options as well, which I'll probably end up using. It's a little bit more convenient where you don't have to take the card out of your pocket every time. There is a safety precaution. The default settings on these systems are set at 32 ounces, so every 2 drinks you'll have to walk up to a bartender and get that reactivated. So that is to protect patrons from overconsumption. Before I move on from the layout, is there any questions? So as I was alluding to earlier, one of the main features of Rec House will be all of the weekly events and the leagues that are built around all of the games and activities that you can find here. And this is really to encourage guests to come downtown on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night with a group of friends and bring the downtown area just a little more liveliness during the week and to encourage more visits throughout the week and also the weekend. So what is available to eat and drink at Rec House? We'll probably offer a self-pour draft wall. It's going to consist of 24 draft handles of local craft beer and cider. And our goal is really to support local breweries. Of course, local breweries within Aurora, but also neighboring towns. We really want our guests to recognize all of the breweries on the draft wall. And if they don't, they'll have an opportunity to see what they're missing out on and to kind of sample a little bit of everything and different types of cider and beer. As you saw from the layout, I just want to reiterate the draft wall is located directly next to the bar in perfect line of sight from all the bartenders. I visited some locations around the country where the draft wall is not next to the bartender. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to really enhance the safety feature of that wall. Rec House will not have a kitchen for preparing food, but we will have dedicated prepackaged snacks, multiple flavors of Dot's Hot Homestyle pretzels, which everyone loves, multiple flavors of popcorn, beef jerky, just to name a few. If guests really want to make that their dinner, they can, but we're going to constantly encourage guests to visit one of the many restaurants, new and upcoming, before or after their trip to Rec House. We will also have QR codes throughout Rec House on the tables. These QR codes will take you to online ordering options from nearby restaurants. And similar to brewery concepts, we will allow guests to bring food in. So if you wanted to order a pizza down the street or a takeout at Leilani or even leftovers, you can do so. But again, our goal is to really partner with all the local restaurants and encourage the guests of Rec House to make a night out of their trip to downtown. So we don't want them to come to Rec House, stay for an hour, and then go home. We want them to go to the theater, get food at Craft Urban, and then make Rec House maybe their last stop of the night. Well, I already spoke on this, but this is obviously a good visual representation of how we want to partner with restaurants. We're not trying to be a competitor, stealing patrons, but we want to enhance, the partnership with all these restaurants. So the hours for Rec House, as of now, we're going to be closed on Monday to begin. Again, with all these leagues and events, we're really hoping to draw a lot of traffic downtown throughout the week, and if enough demand comes for it, we can change our hours to be open on Monday. But throughout the week, we'll be open 3 p.m. to midnight, and weekends 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. And we will be family friendly. I have 2 young kids and a wife, and we take our family to some of the breweries. I am a beer lover, so I do like to try as many as I can, and all breweries are family friendly and they have games and activities. So we're going to be very similar. However, just like Round 1 and Dave & Buster's, you will have to be 21 years of age or older, and at Rec House that'll be 9 p.m. So in conclusion, we really want to enhance the downtown area even further than it already is. We want to make Rec House a vibrant hub of activity and fun, and we really want to inspire people to come downtown and to get them used to treating downtown Aurora as a place you can do more than just get dinner or just see a show at the Paramount. We want to have Rec House be another great addition to somebody's night out, and we want to encourage people from neighboring towns as well. Naperville, Oswego, Sugar Grove, North Aurora, even the Tri-City areas. We want to draw people in that maybe have either never been to downtown Aurora or haven't been in quite a few years. And when they do come downtown, they're going to see the huge transformation that Aurora has seen over the years.
Hey, brother, just so we're all on the same page, based on where that sign is located, where's the front door?
So the front door right now, if you drive past on Benton Street, right below that is the old door to the car elevator shaft for the Pocus Motors building. That door, right now, we're trying to determine the best utilization for the shaft, whether there will be a brand new door installed, double door entrance. So again, if you drive past and you look at the Kluber entrance, very similar glass double doors, tall double doors, beautiful entrance, and then the Rec House sign will be roughly 7 feet tall, 2.5 feet wide. We're working with Aurora Sign Company on this design, so it'll be beautifully illuminated at night and visible from both the east and the west. You'll see it across the river. So that is the current plan for the entrance.
Wow.
Questions? It's beautiful, brother. Beautiful.
Win.
Yeah.
Win.
Alderman Buck.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. I went through this pretty much good detail. Your decision to go dark on Monday. Talk to us a little bit about that. Of course, the Paramount is dark on Monday. They have movie Monday, but I think Monday might be a great opportunity for those leagues to really flourish when the Paramount is not. And as you said, partnering with the restaurants, they're looking for activity on Monday, Tuesday.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, and truthfully, I don't expect Monday to be closed for very long. Traditionally, with similar concepts to Rec House, they typically close down on Mondays, take a break, clean the machines, take that opportunity to kind of hit the reset button. But to your point, especially with the new restaurants that have opened up, that are open 7 days a week, they are looking for something to somebody to partner with to bring their guests downtown. So I'm even open to negotiating, starting off with Monday being open and see, what kind of traffic we can get in on the door. Because again, just like Tuesday, we're only open 3 p.m. to midnight. It's not an all day like a restaurant would be. So there is cost and obviously staff involved, sure, but it might be worth the opportunity.
yeah, I think the leagues could flourish on Mondays because like I said, Paramount's dark.
As long as you participate, and what would it be?
All right.
Pool table, shuffleboard, pinball,
A little air
all
hockey.
the above, air hockey.
And you're looking to open June 1st?
That's the target date right now. According to my general contractor, 12 weeks is the ETA for construction. So depending on when we can begin that is our target.
So we're on saying June of 2025.
Correct.
My man.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, a quick
Alderman Bay.
question. Is this building eligible for any historic tax credit?
I'm unsure of that. I'm not sure if there's anybody in the room that can answer that question.
Mr. Debo?
For what he's doing, no, because it's mostly furniture, FF&E kind of stuff, and I think we do the elevator as well. I think when it was originally done, certain buildings make the economic decision to do historic tax credits. Most of the ones we mentioned this morning did, although the 80 South River property did not. And if you looked at Marty's cost comparisons, they actually were able to bring it in at a very similar number. Because when you do historic renovation, it costs more, but you get all these great credits. And hopefully the net is, and it's usually pretty positive. But this building, it's kind of been done already. If they were, really changing it up, we could look at it. But really, the only big thing is the elevator. And just while I'm up here, I will say that we are going to come to this council and talk about what it's going to take to bring them in here totally in terms of getting the elevator in. And the reason we wanted to do this all together at one time and look at the financing and how this all works out. And we've been working on this for 6 months. But we don't come to you unless we have every number finite. And we actually had to go and hire Kluber Architects to go over and look at the elevator and how it works and the lead time and so on. And once we have that all put together, which we're hoping within the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to come and really tie that timeline down together with you.
Consent?
No objections, item going consent.
Consent? Okay. And the last one is 25-0070, resolution establishing the maximum number of licenses for tattoo and body art establishments in accordance with Chapter 25, Article 11, tattoo and body art establishments. If you remember Mr. Rodriguez, who came in last year, we approved him to go on High Street. His business is doing so well that he needs to double his space. So he's moving to 261 East Indian Trail in the First Ward, staying in the First Ward.
Consent.
And that's it. Consent?
No objections, item
And that's
Alderman
report,
Bug.
Mayor.
Alderman Bug.
Oh.
Just quickly for the clerk, I believe. So it said that it ended December 31. So did we have 5, we went down to 4, and now we're going back to 5?
Revenue and Collections actually handles these licenses, but I was present at the committee, and I believe that is what is happening with this, because he was granted the license for his original shop. Because he is not going to be operating that shop, it goes down, but then it goes up if you decide to grant this license to him.
Okay, 5 to 4 to 5. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, just a quick
Alderman.
comment. So I did have a chance to bring this up at the Pigeon Hill Neighbors Meeting and the Northeast Community Meeting, and there's no concerns about this, and we're just happy that they're staying in Ward 1.
No objections, item going consent.
Consent.
All right. Thank you very much. That concludes Public Health, Safety, and Transportation. Chairwoman Garza, can you give the Infrastructure and Technology Committee report, please?
Yes, Mayor. We met, and INT we met on January 27. The first item I have is 25-0030, a resolution to approve the purchase of 3-year renewal subscription for the premium platform from Event Approval Inc., Vancouver, Canada, and the amount of $48,500 annually for a total award of $145,500.
No objections, item going consent.
That's the only item we have, Mayor. We conclude the meeting.
Thank you very much. Chairman Mormon, can you give the Rules, Administration, and Procedure Committee report, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rules Administration and Procedures Committee met on January 21st, 2025, and reviewed the following items. 24-0827, a resolution approving the reappointments of Gausa Wajid, Servani Volkarain, and Sharon Garcia to the Indian American Community Outreach Advisory Board.
Consent.
No objections, item going consent.
Next item, 25-0042, a resolution authorizing the reappointment of Margaret Stokes and Josh Harris to the Bicycle Pedestrian and
Consent.
Transit
Consent.
Advisory Board.
No objections, item going consent.
Next item on the agenda, 25-0043, a resolution approving the reappointment of Meredith Lindgren to the city's Advisory Commission for Disabilities.
Consent.
No objections, item going consent.
Next item on the agenda, 25-0055, a resolution authorizing the reappointment of Michael Pigus to the Innovation and Technology Advisory Commission.
Consent.
No objections, item going consent.
Next item on the agenda, 25-0057, a resolution authorizing the reappointment of 8 members to the Tree Board.
Consent.
Consent.
No objections, item going consent.
Next item on the agenda, 25-0060, a resolution authorizing the 2025 Ward Neighborhood Cleanup and Shred events in all
Consent.
wards in the city of Aurora.
Consent.
No objections, item going consent.
Next item is information only, 25-0065, revised Alderman's office policies. Next item, 25-
Does anybody have any questions on the revised policies, Alderman Burrow?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a question on 25-0065.
Yes,
So,
sir.
I'm sorry, I know it's getting late, but since I'm the new person here, I just had a question. I got a question from a constituent asking about the policy on social media, not permitting the public to comment. I just wanted to know what the rationale was behind that.
What's the question?
Yeah, which one?
On
Which one is that?
Facebook or social media, there's always opportunities for people to comment and say crazy stuff. and they are good things. And
So I'm just raising the question and.
Yeah, no, yeah, and he's wondering why. And there was a reason. It was part of our policy. Is Mr. Muhammad still present? Or Tony? Anybody from Tony's Martinez department?
Don't get the question.
Yeah, I don't think this is part of the
No,
Alderman's
it's not part of
policy.
the.
Yeah.
the policy.
This is not
No,
part of-
there was, we specifically talked about this in the
not
social
part-
media policy. I just can't remember what we talked about.
It's not on here, though.
Oh, it's not, okay.
Oh,
No, it's not germane to this.
Oh, it's not germane.
Yeah,
to
this
this?
is
No,
Alderperson's
no.
social media.
So
What's
then,
that?
This is for Alderperson's social media accounts.
yes, right.
Oh, for your individual social media
Which
account?
we handle on our own.
Which,
Yeah.
so then you'd be able to turn on the comments on your individual social media.
So it's an individual choice? Is that?
It is, and that's, I remember, Mr. Martinez isn't present, and I think we gotta talk about this another day, because this is just for,
Okay.
information only. But there was specifically, a comment that he talked about where he was gonna make a policy across the board for all the aldermen's social media. So I don't think we've got to that point yet. Alderman, I'm sorry, council.
Mayor, just in general, that whenever a Facebook page or something along those lines is set up and maintained by public funds and it's basically an extension of a governmental entity, you don't have the ability to pick and choose which comments can occur.
Well, that's not the point. I think it was not turned on.
Well, you do have, however, the opportunity to not use that as a forum for additional comments. You just can't pick and choose. So it's either they're all on or they're all off.
And that was going to be part of the policy that Mr. Martinez is working on when he standardizes all the aldermen's social media accounts. It has them associated with the city of Aurora versus individually. But again, this is for discussion, so that's something that we'd have to talk about before. But I remember having that conversation with Mr. Martinez, and I thought he had spoken with the alderman about it. But I guess that'll be coming up very soon. So that question will be answered very soon.
Okay,
Mayor,
thank you.
I have a question
Thank
about
you.
that. Why is Mr. Martinez talking about our social media? Why isn't this at RAP? Why is he?
Well, I guess
this
he's going to
is
come talk to RAP at some point
Yeah.
about, because he is the one, the maintainer of all the social media throughout the city.
Not ours.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Every
Ours-
alderman should probably have social media associated directly with the city. So let's say you're not the alderman anymore. It doesn't all go with you. It stays with the city of Aurora. But again, that's a conversation that we're going to be having at some point in the future when Mr. Martinez brings this up and goes to RAP.
Mr. Martinez is going to maintain that page if he decides to do it.
I think that's the plan. But we'll talk about it as we go on. Again, I see all the eyes on me. Why don't y'all talk to Mr. Martinez about it, and then we'll go from there.
We don't want it.
I'm sure. But that's a conversation for another day. But that'll be answered, so at some point, the question's gonna have to be answered that he's asking. Are the comments gonna be turned on, turned off? If it's your personal one, you can leave the comments on or off as you want. If it's one, as council pointed out, that is paid by city funds, then we'll have to make a determination. If they're on, people can say anything they want, but we can make a determination if they're off. Tony will be talking to you guys about that as we work on our social media policy.
And, last item on the agenda, 25-0067, a resolution approving the reappointment of Nelson Santos, William Kerwin, and Roderick Young to the Aurora
Consent.
Airport
Consent.
No
Advisory
objections,
Board.
item go on consent.
This concludes Rules, Administration, and Procedures Committee.
Thank you very much. That concludes committee reports. There was a Community Engagement Division update for the staff report, but I believe they've done that under the mayoral report.
Motion to adjourn.
There's been a motion to adjourn
Second.
by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Garza. Is there, all in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is hereby adjourned.